To understand the present era of societal chaos across the world, we must trace back not just to the beginning of human civilization or the evolution of the human species, but all the way to the origin of the universe and the Big Bang. From the spiraling galaxies to the traffic jams in megacities, from the existential dread of a teenager scrolling endlessly on social media, to the geopolitical tensions splitting continents. All of it, every layer of chaos, conflict, innovation, and identity we live through today, can only be understood fully if we trace it back not just to recorded history, nor to the first Homo sapiens, but to the very beginning, the Big Bang, when time, space, and matter emerged from a singularity 13.8 billion years ago. It was then that the laws of physics crystallized into what we now call natural order, and it is within this framework that all subsequent chaos evolved. The universe began as an incredibly hot, dense point that expanded rapidly, scattering energy and particles into a cosmos that would eventually cool, allowing stars, galaxies, and ultimately solar systems to form. Our Earth, born around 4.5 billion years ago from a swirling disk of gas and dust, became a unique harbor for life, where water stabilized, organic molecules bonded, and a delicate dance of evolution commenced. From single-celled organisms to the Cambrian explosion, from reptiles to mammals, the journey toward the conscious, anxious, chaotic human mind was not sudden but sculpted by randomness and selection over eons. Homo sapiens emerged just 200,000 years ago, yet in this tiny sliver of cosmic time, we have managed to terraform the Earth socially and psychologically. Our prefrontal cortex, the seat of executive function, allows for language, abstraction, and moral judgment, but also fuels anxiety, competition, and tribalism. The first agricultural revolution around 10,000 years ago shifted human society from egalitarian bands of hunter-gatherers into hierarchies, class structures, and ownership, beginning the long march toward modern nation-states. Ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt invented writing systems not to tell stories, but to collect taxes and organize labor. With centralization came bureaucracy, military power, and inequality, laying the groundwork for what we now experience as systemic complexity and moral tension. The Axial Age brought ethical philosophies, Confucius, Buddha, Socrates, proposing ways to tame the human spirit. But human nature is never fully tamed. The Industrial Revolution accelerated this fragmentation. Machines replaced hands, people were uprooted from kin-based communities and placed in wage labor structures, and the pace of change began to outstrip our nervous systems. The rise of capitalism commodified time, labor, and eventually the self, driving not just production but consumption and comparison. And now, in the digital age, we carry endless mirrors in our pockets, smartphones that reflect and distort our sense of self, our social value, and our understanding of the world. Every swipe, like, and notification stimulates dopamine circuits wired for survival, creating chronic stress, addiction, and loneliness, despite technological interconnection. Yet underneath this mental chaos is a deeper social instability. Governments increasingly prioritize economic growth over psychological health. Education systems reward productivity over emotional intelligence, and media platforms monetize outrage. Scientific studies by the World Health Organization reveal that depression is now the leading cause of disability worldwide. The American Psychological Association reports a steady rise in anxiety disorders among adolescents, particularly since the proliferation of algorithmically driven social media. But this chaos is not random. It's the predictable consequence of systems not designed for human flourishing, but for efficiency, control, and profit. Nations today resemble stressed parents managing a hyperactive child, reactive, fragmented, and stuck in survival mode. And just as a child's mental health is deeply shaped by how safe, seen, and supported they feel at home, so too is a citizen's well-being shaped by the policies, culture, and philosophy of their nation. When governments treat citizens like numbers in spreadsheets rather than hearts in homes, when political discourse becomes a battleground of ego instead of empathy, when economic policy serves markets more than meaning, the result is what we see today: rising polarization, spiritual emptiness, and a collective sense of disconnection. But here's the twist. The chaos is not merely a product of the modern world, It is a product of consciousness itself. As humans became self-aware, we became capable of imagining futures and regretting pasts. We became animals with stories, narratives that give us belonging, purpose, and identity, but also stories that separate and alienate us. Neuroscience shows the default mode network in the brain is highly active when we're not doing anything in particular. It's the home of self-referential thinking. Meditation research shows that reducing this brain activity correlates with increased well-being. This suggests that part of our suffering comes not from the world itself, but from the way we think about the world and ourselves. Still, we cannot meditate away systemic problems. We must address both the inner and outer chaos. Education must evolve to include emotional literacy. Healthcare must prioritize prevention and mental well-being, not just biochemical interventions. Societies must balance individualism with community, innovation with meaning, and ambition with rest. Just as astrophysicists use the light of distant galaxies to understand how the universe began, we must use the fragments of psychological and societal data, suicide rates, loneliness indexes, social trust surveys, empathy decline in youth, to trace our path back and ask not just how did we get here, but what forces have been shaping us since the stars were born. Perhaps, in the end, understanding the chaos of our time is less about fixing what is broken and more about remembering where it all began. And in doing so, we might come to realize that we are not isolated individuals floating in a sea of madness, but stardust with nervous systems, part of an unfolding universe that is neither fully chaotic nor fully ordered, but alive, uncertain, and constantly evolving. If the universe began in an explosion and still managed to create trees, laughter, poetry, and forgiveness, maybe there's hope that our own chaos, too, is birthing something new. Perhaps the mess is not a malfunction, but a transition. And perhaps we are not just victims of chaos, but midwives of meaning.